Republicans float cutting healthcare to pay for the war in Iran. But don't worry, America. Trump's ballroom will be so glamorous, you'll forget all about the debt that you're buried under. This is just another day. At today's White House press briefing, the fake news media once again attempted to paint this administration and their party in a negative light over a story that lacks a little something called truth.
There are reports that Republicans are weighing cuts to health care in order to make way for that $200 billion for the Pentagon and Operation Epic Fury. Is that a trade-off that President Trump supports?
I've seen these reports. I haven't spoken to the president about it, nor have I heard this being discussed in any high-level meetings here at the White House. I don't want to weigh in definitively because I just haven't heard that being discussed here in the West Wing.
You see, it's not even worth commenting on because it's not even being discussed at the White House. And this is, sadly, how rumors get started. One person whispers a meritless claim to a spineless reporter about Republicans wanting to cut healthcare to pay for Trump's new ask of $200 billion. The reporter puts it out there, and suddenly it becomes an issue. But in the end, it's all hearsay. The old government goss, the old Capitol canard, the old DC dish, the old Beltway bullshit, the old... Let's just play the clip.
We have a war on a nuclear Iran that could be paid for by the president's war on fraud. And as you said, there's a boatload of fraud across the federal government. We just addressed Medicaid and SNAP, but there are 70 plus means-tested welfare programs across this entire people's government and about $1.5 trillion cost. You mentioned the GAO reports. This just makes too much sense.
It sure does make sense. That's Republican Jody Arrington, chairman of the House Budget Committee, and frankly, I don't know how we're not seeing more synergy here that can help our nation curb costs. I mean, we've got a hefty price tag for America's weapons, and we've got elderly fraudsters who clearly hate our country. To me, the Granny Tomahawk just makes sense. So apparently, this is no rumor. Republicans in Congress have decided that rather than making it harder for Trump to spend America's tax dollars on a war he never got or tried to get approval for, they'd rather rip more money away from millions of people trying to afford healthcare. But don't worry. If you think this means you won't be able to pay the bill in the event an ambulance has to come to your house, fear not, because it looks like that ambulance won't even be able to fill up their tank with gas for much longer.
The cost of diesel is averaging at $5.38 a gallon right now. What's the message from the Trump administration to truck drivers who are dealing with those high fuel costs right now?
Again, we understand, we hear you, we see you. We are fully tracking this short-term fluctuation in oil and in diesel prices.
That's right. Not only are they fully tracking this short-term fluctuation, yesterday, Trump even had some charts printed up to show exactly where things stand.
I did something today. We just got these in from the architects. A lot of people are talking about how beautiful the ballroom is. For 150 years, they've wanted to build a ballroom at the White House.
Whoops. I guess Trump decided to track the status of something else instead, but I'm sure that was merely a single poster of his ballroom, and the rest of his show and tell project pertained to the financial struggle that Americans are being forced to endure thanks to his war with Iran.
You see what that is, right? What's nice? I'll show you.
Yeah, it was stuff.
Here's another view. This is coming from right opposite the Treasury building. Let me see another one of them. Here's a view from the south with the porch, which is a porch, and it's also a fire stair basically leading down to the grounds. This is a view of the columns as they are going to be made. They're going to be hand carved, and they're beautiful.
I know that Trump is trying to beef up Air Force One, but I didn't realize he needed a fucking Kinko's on board. At a time when Trump is asking Americans to pay more for pretty much everything, it takes massive balls to talk this much about your gilded ballroom. Not that parts of his presentation weren't educational.
Now the military is building a big complex under the ballroom, which has come out recently because of a stupid lawsuit that was filed.
Stupid lawsuits, always ruining America's fun by bringing to light what Trump is trying to do in secret. Yes, it turns out the National Trust for Historic Preservation, i.e. the group who would love it if you checked in before bulldozing the White House, brought a suit arguing that the Trump administration bypassed mandatory reviews before enacting this massive construction project. But the White House apparently had trouble hearing their complaints because because Donald Trump wanted to have a healthy dialogue, but it was just too tough with all the noise. White House lawyers and Secret Service eventually argued in court that stopping the project would endanger national security given the sensitive nature of the bunker's modernization. And maybe it's just me, but I'm starting to sense a pattern here. The administration bypasses everyone and demolishes the East Wing, then claims stopping now would be unsafe. They bypass everyone and impose chaotic tariffs, then claim stopping now would be unsafe for our economy. They bypass everyone and take us to war with Iran, then claim stopping now would be unsafe for our nation. You know, I'm getting some real Facebook vibes from these guys.
Famously, it used to be move fast and break things.
Yeah, and when has that mantra ever failed them? But while it may have seemed like our commander-in-chief was devoting an inordinate amount of time to a costly, lavish, incredibly out-of-touch event space that no one but him is actually asking for, that couldn't be further from the truth. What the world was actually witnessing yesterday was an expert in time management.
Here's another one. Excuse me, wait. I thought I'd do this now because it's easier. I'm so busy that I don't have time to do this. But I'm fighting wars and other things. But this is very important because this is going to be with us for a long time, and it's going to be, I think it'll be the greatest bar anywhere in the world.
Exactly. Donald Trump doesn't have time to do it, which is why he's doing it. Because if he actually had the time, he wouldn't do it. It's the same reason he golfs so much, attends award ceremonies for himself, and has those Gatsby parties at Mar-a-Lago, because he doesn't have time to do those things. I mean, for God's sake, the guy has a country to run. The reality is, if Donald Trump wants to get something done, he always finds a way, which is why the East Wing has been transformed into a pile of rubble. This president is not a man who lets laws, judges, attorneys, or even the U.S. Constitution impede his desires. If he wants to knock down half the White House, renovate the Lincoln bathroom, repave the Rose Garden, and redo the White House walkways, Donald Trump finds a way. If he wants to double his net worth within his first year in office, Trump finds a way. If he wants to host a clandestine crypto dinner, Trump finds a way. If he wants to get intimate with somebody who doesn't want to get intimate with him, Trump finds a way. Because if there is one thing we know about Donald Trump from Donald Trump, it is that he works his ass off.
Nobody in American politics works harder than President Trump.
He never stops working.
The main thing I take away from you is work ethic. Some we preach, and nobody works harder for America than you.
The president has incredible energy.
I love the fact that we have a president who you can have conversations with at, like 1, 2, 4 o'clock in the morning.
And sure, those middle-of-the-night combos usually consist of questions about whether the statuary marble will clash with the crystal in the chandeliers, but the point remains, Donald Trump is the hardest working man DC has ever seen, which makes America's current situation even worse. The fact that people in this country are paying more for gas, more for groceries, more for rent, and more for healthcare under Trump's watch only proves how little Donald Trump gives a shit. Because we know that he's got the time and the energy, he clearly just doesn't have the interest. Can you even imagine a world where this president printed photos to showcase how hard he was working on bringing justice to Epstein's victims? Never in a million years. Donald Trump's top priority is himself. So when people say how hard he works or how little he sleeps, I believe it. I just think that when it comes to fucking over the American people,
nobody in American politics works harder than President Trump.
I couldn't agree more. Before you go, I'm very excited to announce that I've written a new book titled The Day After: How to Wield Power in a Post-Trump World. The book explores what is, in my opinion, the single most important theme that we're dealing with in politics today and moving forward: power. Specifically, how Republicans abuse it and how Democrats refuse to wield it. This book explains how we got here and, more importantly, how we should finally wield power if we're lucky enough to get it back. It is the blueprint for progressives who want to do far more than just restore the status quo. Please pre-order today by following the link on this screen. You can grab yours from any of the major retailers like Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or scroll down on the page and get a copy from an independent bookstore closest to you. Thanks so much for supporting independent media.